Alright, Horror Hounds, and welcome to another episode of This Just In. I know I've taken a little bit of a hiatus away from doing stuff for almost a month now, we're about to it. You know, birthdays, that nice COVID virus stuff, and just a lot of stuff going on with the holidays, so I took a little bit of a break. I'm a little bit late to the party, but I did decide that I will be doing a best of 2022 kind of type thing. I'm just going to be ranking all 18 films I saw that kind of fit in the horror genre. I got a couple of cheaters in there. So, without further ado, let's start off with number 18, which is Firestarter. So, Firestarter was a movie that came out last year. I tried watching it twice with my wife. We never did finish it. We weren't really big fans of the movie. It got kind of boring. There wasn't a whole lot going on, and never finished it. I wouldn't normally do a review, but it fits in the horror content. And nobody was asking for a Firestarter remake anyways, so I don't know why that they did it, but they did. And it was not entertaining enough for me to even finish. Alright, coming in at number 17 is They Them. The Kevin Bacon movie that brings them back to the old cabin in the woods, except for in this film, he is more of a guy running a camp, and it's like they're trying to get people to not want to be part of the LGBTQ community. It's like they're trying to knock it out of them. Like, hey, you're not really gay. Hey, you're not really lesbian. Hey, you're not really a girl or a guy. You're just you. You are male. You will like girls, and we will do what it takes to get you there. The premise of the story was decent. Some of the stuff they did was okay. A lot of kills were not on screen, or they just kind of like you might see the shadow in the background and not like anything up forward. And then every time they had a chance to kind of really push the envelope for any of the they, them, the gay, the bi, the I'm a girl, I'm a boy stuff, it felt like they kind of just cut it off. And they didn't actually go through with it. So it was a very disappointing movie. I didn't have high hopes for it since I didn't hear nothing about it, and then it came out on Peacock, and yeah, that's exactly what you would expect from a movie you did not expect anything from. Nothing happens. Alright, number 16, Choose or Die, came out on Netflix. And this is kind of like a what happens in a video game, happens in real life, see if you can get to the ending kind of game. It drew me in because it said starring Robert Englund. That was a lie. Robert Englund does a voice cameo. And he says one recording, and I think they use it 3 times in the movie. There was one neat sequence in there. It has to deal with like the real tape. I said that kind of funny, but you know what I mean, like the tape coming off of a reel. Kind of like a forwards and backwards thing with that. It was neat. That was probably the best part in the entire movie. Other than that, there's not much to write home about it, to be honest with you. I watched it when it came out, and I don't remember a whole lot about it besides that one scene. Alright, number 15 is VHS 99. This was a big disappointment for me, because I do enjoy anthology series movies, and this one had no overarching story whatsoever. So there was nothing connecting all the stories together like there normally is, or at least there's a story in the background while people are watching VHS films of these other stories. There was nothing here. They just said fuck it and disregarded it. And a lot of the stories I thought sucked. I thought there was some surprise endings just for surprise sake, which I know VHS is kind of known for that. But it just felt like it was rushed. I do believe this came out was it a year later after 94? And I know they're already in production to make, I think it's 85. So I'm hoping 85 does not turn out as bad as this one did, because 94 was pretty good, and 99 was not good at all, if you ask me. Alright, moving on. Number 14 was The Invitation, the vampire horror movie. That forgot that it had to have horror involved. This was more like a love story. This was meant more for like people who came out to see Twilight. I would say it's like a PG-13 version of Twilight. It goes further than Twilight does, but not much. The acting in it's fine. The way it's shot is really nice. It's a great looking movie. It's just they build it as one thing, and that's not what we got when we watched it. So there wasn't a lot there. And the story itself was not fantastic. There was nothing new that it brought to the table. It's a story that if you've seen a vampire movie, you have seen this story done before, and probably better. Alright, number 13 for me was Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Did not have high hopes for this movie, but it had Pete Davidson in it, so I thought, it's at least going to be a nice comedic horror. Well, this was more like an annoying horror. The storyline in it was shitty, if you ask me. It's a whodunit, so you don't really get to see any of the kills because there's nobody in a mask like you see in Scream. So they can't really cover somebody's body up in that sense. So, and it's all the dialogue in this movie was just shit. Like, you're silencing me, you're gaslighting me, cancel culture. There was a lot of that talk, but it was like the entire movie was just that type of talking, and maybe that's how kids today talk, but not from the ones that I see, and not my own kids talk like that. So it was just very, I don't know, it was like it was just shoehorned in there to be like, see, look at us, we're a millennial movie. We're going after that crowd. And the ending I kind of figured out halfway through the movie, so it was not very satisfying. Plus, if you've seen how the movie ends, that was the reason why I came to the movie. So, yeah, it wasn't for the ending, but if you haven't seen it, I don't even recommend you watch it unless you think that kind of interests you. Alright, number 12, Day Shift. The Jamie Foxx vampire hunting movie. This just blah. I mean, I don't remember a whole lot about it. I know there was a lot of action scenes that kind of reminded me of, like, The Matrix or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like, I don't know, like that, like, maybe not Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but like the Jackie Chan movies that had like the wires. There was a lot of that weird shit in it. And the story is just vanilla. It's a story we've seen 100 times. Snoop Dogg was pretty good in it, but he's not in it enough to save it. I mean, Jamie Foxx does fine in his role, but it's just there. There's it's like a 3. There's nothing memorable about it. I can't even really tell you a scene that I remember. And that's sad because we don't get a lot of vampire movies anyways, so I was kind of hoping this was going to be a real good, like, almost like a Blade. But it was not. Alright, number 11, Grim Cuddy, the Hulu horror movie with a guy who looks like Groot from Despicable Me from a distance, and he looks hilarious from a distance, especially by his body shape. But up close, he's got a big head full, mouthful of teeth. And the overall story of this one I thought was actually creative, and it was a good story setup. So you got this app, and these kids play this Grim Cuddy game, and when they do, Grim Cuddy comes after them to kill them. But when he does, it makes it look as if these kids are committing suicide. So I thought that was a neat take. You got this demonic force, whatever it is coming after these kids. And it makes it look like they're killing themselves, so the parents believe this game makes kids kill themselves, not that something's actually coming after their children. Neat little concept. It wasn't the worst storyline of all time in that sense. I felt like the horror didn't, like, it was decent, but it didn't have like no like real pack a punch type moment. And I felt like the ending of it was just kind of dumb. But other than that, it was a decent movie, especially for straight to Hulu. Alright, number 10, Halloween Kills, the biggest blockbuster event of the year. If you want to see my review on that, I already have it on this channel. I have a review on every Halloween movie, the entire series ranked, and I have 10 things I loved and hated about this movie. So, to keep this one short, this movie does not give you anything that the trailer tells it's going to give you, which is normally a good thing. Except for what it gives you has nothing to do with the other 2 movies in this trilogy. So that's the first kind of negative thing, and then the other one is the story that you go along for, which I was on board with for most of the movie, they just kind of like scrap it and throw it to the side and shoehorn some random, like not random shit, but like the shit you thought the movie was about at the end for 5 minutes. And I would appreciate you going in a new direction, as like you were, if you would have actually went into that direction full board and just full force did it. But instead you were like, oh no, my feet got cold. Let's back out of this. We gotta throw this other thing in there that we promised. You could have probably done what happened at the end in the beginning of the movie, and then had the character actually pick up Michael's mask from Laurie's house, and then continued on with what you did to create a whole new legacy of Halloween. Yes, it's not Michael Myers moving forward at that point, it's somebody else. But instead, you did it ass backwards. Plus, it would have been right in the beginning. Nobody would have expected shit. They would have been like, whoa. And then you would have had this other story of like they're building up this new character, which people would maybe been a little angry, but you see how much people love the Marvel Universe? They got like 8 different people who can play each superhero because of the different dimensions and universes and all the other shit they do in that universe or the multiverse. So I think people would have gotten over it. Alright. Number 9 was the new Scream movie. The new Scream movie was okay. It did remind me a lot of the regular Scream movies, but I felt like it was missing something. And it's probably just because Wes Craven is one of my favorite directors of all time. He has a lot of fantastic films. And I felt like the legacy characters were just there for the most part. 2 of them anyways. One actually has a really good place in this story, and they do a good job with that character. The Killers, not really a big surprise. That was one of the disappointments, was I felt like I had it pegged early, and then I kept trying to second guess myself to make it more exciting as the movie went along. But then at the end I was like, nah, it was them. So, I just wish it would have been better. And the main girl's acting, not Jenna Ortega, because she was fine, but she wasn't in it enough to cover it up. The main girl's acting I was not a fan of. I know a lot of people gave her praise online. I thought she did a terrible job, and now she's going to be here going forward for who knows how long. So that's one of the things that makes me nervous about Scream 6 coming out this year. Alright. Number 8, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot. Requel. This one was pretty good. It was fun. I mean, you got Leatherface going around murdering a bunch of people. Bunch of fantastic different ways. Very bloody, very gory. A real cool scene on a bus. Surprise ending at the end that wasn't really a surprise, but that's only because if you watch too many horror movies, you know how horror movies always end. But I thought it was fun. It was good. It was fine. Like, it wasn't like knock your socks off, gonna be this great movie, but it gave you what you wanted. Leatherface, mauling down, hacking through a bunch of people, blood, gore. The acting wasn't terrible in this movie. The only one that sucked was the person who came back to play the role of Hardesty in this movie, the girl from the very first movie, because the original actress, I believe, is passed away at this point, so they brought someone else in, and she's not normally a bad actress, but it felt like a waste of time. It was like, hey, this is a sequel to that one because this one person, yeah, she's gonna be here for a good solid 10 minutes. I'm like, that's a waste of a legacy character. Like, that's not how you use somebody, especially a final girl from the original movie when this came out in 74. And it's 2022. Like, that's damn near 50 years. Like, you would think they'd have more to do with it, but that's what they did with her. It was very disappointing what they did with her. If I cared about her more from the original movie, then I'd probably be pissed off if I was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like, diehard fan. But I'm not, so I prefer the remake over the original anyways, just because I saw it first, and it was one of the best horror movies I saw when I was a kid, so... Moving on to number 7, the surprise of the year, Smile. We all saw the ads. They did a great marketing campaign, and actually this movie was pretty good. I was surprised. I did think this was going to be a shitbag movie, going to be just along the same lines as like Truth or Dare, to the point where this wasn't even one that I would want to see in theaters. So I waited till it was out on Paramount, and then I was like, oh, this is actually a good movie. Kind of feel bad that I gave him the Truth or Dare treatment. But you get burned once, it's kind of hard to forgive. But the overall story isn't bad. I thought the ending was a little bit blah. I thought that with a lot of horror movies this year, if you can't tell a lot of the endings to these movies, it's just like, what's that old, like, Stephen King knows how to write one hell of a horror story, but doesn't know how to fucking finish it. I felt that with a lot of movies this year. But it was a good movie. It was fine. The acting in it was fine. And everything was decent. I mean, you had some blood and gore. You had some pretty gnarly looking scenes in it for being the movie that it was. So I thought it was good. The storyline itself was good. But it only gets to number 7. Number 6 is my Hulu surprise, not a horror movie really, but Prey. So Prey was the prequel to Predator, I think. Is what they called it. So you got the Predator character in here. You get to see him mauling down, doing some damage. You get to see him taking out animals. And then you got a girl who's trying to become a hunter. And she goes through the trials and the tribulations. We get to see the characters get beat up quite a bit. We get to see the Predator get beat up a lot. She learns from the mistakes of others and uses her simpleness to her advantage. And this was a great movie. I mean, it's not very often that you get a movie that's a prequel that's decent, but also this one went back to basics. Like, instead of it being a 200-foot tall predator storming the earth, they just went back to basics. It was a predator who had very minimal amount of weapons to use. The people going after him, or he was going after, had very minimal weapons to use. It was just a good story, and it was overall good. It had me kind of like excited to see if they're going to do another Predator movie on Hulu, or at least in that universe, and release it in theaters, because I felt like that should have been a theater release. And number 5 was another Hulu surprise. So I got 3 Hulu movies on here, all while Grim Cuddy was 11, so not top 10. But still, the new Hellraiser movie. I thought this movie was great. This movie did the one thing that no other Hellraiser movie did besides the third one, and it focused on the Cenobites. The Cenobites were the focal part of the story, but it had a great story. The Cenobites looked awesome. It was bloody. It was gory. I wish it was a little more gory, which I know is probably kind of a hot take because people do think this movie was very gory, but I don't know. I always saw the original. When I saw the original as a kid, I used to think it was this disgusting, gory movie. So now I kind of just have like this bar kind of set high when it comes to Hellraiser. And this one was still bloody and gory, but I was just kind of hoping it went a little further. But overall, the acting is good. The storyline is fantastic. I loved the fact that they took the Leviathan box and they changed it so that it changes positions and it leads to different things. And at the end, when you complete it, you get choices to make. And Pinhead comes down and you have to answer the choices to Pinhead. I thought it was a really, really, really good movie. But it was one of my surprises this year. Alright. 4 is my last movie that is not really a horror movie, but I'm going with Violent Night because it was bloody, it was gory, it was awesome. If most people who know me know that Die Hard is my favorite movie when it comes to Christmas, but it's my favorite action movie too, I would believe. I'd have to look through some because there are a few more I like, but I'm pretty sure Die Hard is always number 1. I watch it every single year. It's not Christmas until I watch Die Hard. And this was very similar in the vein of Die Hard, but Santa Claus instead of John McClane. And we had, John, is it Leguizamo? I think that's how you say his last name. He was in this movie, and he did a fantastic job. He was an asshole. He was the perfect kind of villain, and he played it to a T, and most of the characters, for the most part, were pretty good in the movie. There was a couple of shitty ones, and a lot of the kill scenes were really good. There was just one that was too darkly visible, like it should have been lit a little bit better. Other than that, this was a good movie. It's a holiday classic. When it comes out on DVD, it'll be finding a spot on the shelf for us. Alright, back to horror now. Number 3 is The Black Phone. This was written by Stephen King's son, and you can just kind of tell that the story is a Stephen King. Like, it has that feel to it, like when you watch like the original Shining or stuff like that. Like, this movie has that kind of a feel to it, if you ask me. It was shot well. It has a great 70s look, grainy kind of look. The acting in it is pretty good. Ethan Hawke does a great job being the grabber with the different masks that have different faces on them, which kind of expresses his mood at different times. That was really clever. I think it was... trying to think who did the special effects on this. I'm pretty sure it was Tom Savini who did that mask. So, Tom Savini, Mr. 80s horror gown, 80s horror hound, giving us the gore. Still doing it today. So that was kind of neat. Number two for me is one of the biggest surprises because I didn't know this movie was even coming out, and that's Barbarian. I have a review on my channel for this movie as well if you want to check it out. It's a good story. The trailer didn't tell you anything, so the trailer left me kind of intrigued. And then finding out when I was watching the movie, oh shit, Justin Long's in this. That's awesome because I think he's a very underrated horror actor. Every time I see him in something, he does a good job. Like, I know a lot of people don't want to talk about Jeepers Creepers, but him in that movie, he did fantastic. Him in Tusk, he was fucking awesome, and I love Tusk because it has that weird body horror to it. But this movie was good, and it doesn't tell you, like, it has some graphic stuff in it. It has some kind of gross out factor to it. And there's just kind of like, it goes for a little bit of disturbing. But overall, it's just a very good movie. Alright, and my number one is Jurassic World. No, just kidding. Jurassic World sucked. Went and seen that in theaters, and that was a waste of fucking time. So that's the amount of time it gets in my channel. My actual number one, Terrifier 2. So if you saw my review on this, you probably knew this was going to be number one for me. I love the first Terrifier, and I love this one. If you haven't seen my review on it, you can watch the whole video. It's on my channel. I would say this was like a 5 out of 5 for me. It was 2.5 hours long. It didn't feel like it. I can't wait for Terrifier 3. All practical effects, the blood and the gore. Art the Clown is an awesome, awesome horror killer. I would say icon. Because he's not a slow, silent stalker like Michael and Jason, which are kind of not my favorites. I like Chucky and Freddy a lot more, and those ones are talkative. They're funny, but they're still, some great kills and stuff like that. This has great kills. Art doesn't talk, but he does have mannerisms and faces that he makes, and little stuff that he does that kind of just, like, really lets out a whole lot of emotion from somebody who's kind of almost stoic and motionless. So, that is my number one. Alright, guys. Going forward on this channel, I do plan on still reviewing movies, but I also want to kind of do like a compendium where I want to take a whole series of movies and kind of just sit and talk kind of like a podcast style. So just let me know in the comments below if that's something you look forward to, or if you just want me to keep doing movie reviews. I do think I'm going to get out of the in and out style because it's just kind of quick pace and I don't get to have enough talk about it, and I felt like it's just not me as much. I gave it a real try towards the end of the year, and I felt like my Chucky stuff was better, where I actually go through the whole film, break it down, and can add my own flavor to it. So I want to do that again, so that's what I'm going to start doing forward. I'm going to be picking a movie and probably going to be doing a series, and then I'm going to do some series in the compendium style, and movies that I see new I'll obviously review on here. If you have anything else that you'd like me to talk about, don't forget to put it in the comments below. If you would, give me a like, subscribe if you haven't already, share this with anybody who might want to see it. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can see when my next video posts. And until the next one, guys, rest in peace.